afternoon. Oh, there's no sound. Now we got sound. Good afternoon. How was lunch? Woo! We got lunch. Free food. My favorite. So did anyone come to my Cosmo talk this morning? A few people? All right. This is completely different. Has nothing to do with robots. Well, hopefully it doesn't have anything to do with robots. So I'm going to share a bunch of personal experiences. My aim with this is that you're going to be as interactive as I am, because otherwise you're not going to get much out of it. But we'll get to more of that shortly. So first of all, are you satisfied? And this is a question that I like asking because it can mean so many different things. And it usually means something different to each and every single person, right? So are you satisfied with the way that you live? Are you satisfied with your work, with your career, with where you live, with how you live? These are all really important questions, and we're not going to answer all of them today, but I want you to think about these things because, well, the whole idea of this talk is that to kind of move you forward, we need to think about these things. Are you empowered to do what you need to do? Are you empowered to do more, to choose the things that you want to do? This is often the case that you want to do something, but you don't have the allowance. You're not allowed to do it for whatever reason. Are you empowered to do it? And are you leading? Are you actually taking charge of what you want to do? Are you taking charge in your life right now, saying, "Oh, I'm not content with just being where I am. I want to progress. I have got, things I want to do." So I'm guessing most people here has a family, right? No? No one? Oh, okay. Well, I'll just leave then. No, the reason I bring up family is that for two things normally. Either we use family as an excuse and say, yeah, I'd love to do that, but kids and things. Or we really genuinely want to do things and are struggling to find the right time and the right ways to do it around the family. Because I totally agree, family comes first. There's no doubt in my mind what I'd rather do, be with my 3-year-old or writing a piece of code. But we have to make those choices, and we have to make it all fit in, one way or another. Anyone has ambitions? Anyone has ambitions right now or doing something more than what you're doing right now? There's like 3 people. Seriously? Okay, thank you. Because I'm like, why are you here otherwise? It's really important to have ambitions. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a guest in your country, but America is more approving of having people having ambitions that are not selfish, but kind of like, I need to do things. A lot of countries, like I'm Danish originally, Denmark has this, in Australia it's called tall poppy syndrome, who do you think you are, and why are you doing all this, I'm better than you kind of thing. And I don't think America has that to the same extent. But am I right? No? Yes? Yeah? Hey? America. No, I'm saying this as a positive thing, right? You guys allow each other to progress and say, hey, I want to do this thing, and you support the person in doing those things, rather than saying, why are you doing that? That's stupid. I could do better than that. And some cultures are just different. Most people want more out of life, right? And by the way, if you have questions, you're probably familiar with the Slack method now. Just either put them on Slack, and hopefully we can get to them at the end, or just yell out, put your hand up. I'm happy to answer questions about what we're talking about. Most people want more out of life. Most people don't know how to get more out of life. There's often this feeling of, yeah, I'm doing all right. I've got a job, and I've got a family, and I've got a car, and I've got a dog or whatever. But there's this thing missing, right? I want more. I want to push myself to do more. But where do you start? And then often I see tweets like these. So this is a Twitter friend, as in a guy I talk to regularly on Twitter, but have actually never met in real life. And I think that's a positive that you can actually do that today. I've met a lot of people. I met Jeremy sitting in the front here. I met him first time at the conference, but we've spoken for a couple of years, I think. But this person's not asking for a new job. This person's asking for, hey, I need a change. Right? They're not really asking for a new job. I don't think that's the case. That's a knee-jerk reaction of, hey, I need something to change. It's probably the job. I'll just change that. How many here has changed jobs because you weren't happy with the job? Exactly, right? And sometimes, yeah, that's a good idea, but often it's just because you're trying to fix something that isn't fixable by changing your job, right? I would imagine some of you have changed job and not actually solved the things you aren't happy with. You still have an idiot boss, you still have coworkers that are incompetent and all those things, right? But this guy's not alone. Like, they come from all over. And there's some of them that are really horrible. Like, look at this one. I'm at work now. I'll be working 5-6 hour shifts in a row, and I'm ready to die. Holy shit. This is why I need a new job. Again, I don't think that's a new job. There's something lacking. There's someone they have a need of someone showing them, hey, I need help doing the next thing. I need help being pushed forward in doing something. And I'm hoping I can share some things with what I've done to kind of get over that hump in the next 55 minutes or so. So does that make sense? Yeah, questions so far? Does anyone recognize these kind of symptoms? Let's call them symptoms. Not that I'm a doctor. Yeah, there's one brave person going, yep. Yeah, and a few more hands. I'll get to you, don't worry. We'll get there. So I don't want to kind of brag on anything, but I just want to show you the things that I've managed to do around family as well. So I run a tiny little software consultancy where I am the chief hologram wrangler. I'm also the coffee lady. I'm the photocopier. Actually, it's just me, right? So I'm a freelancer. That's my brilliant logo I made in paint.net. But that's kind of my main business. Right? I do all sorts, websites, web projects, mobile apps, blah, 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 the whole thing. I also organize a conference that's similar in spirit to this one, although about half the size, called DDD Melbourne, which is once a year in Melbourne. I've done that for the last 9 years. I'm a Pluralsight author, so I've got, I think it's 24 courses now, or 25. I just finished one, I can't even remember. I'm Microsoft MVP for the last 4 years, which means you talk a lot about Microsoft stuff, they give you stickers. That's pretty much it. There's people always think, oh, so you know everything beforehand. Right. Yeah, maybe a day, right? And everything's under NDA, so you can't tell anyone ever. I write a lot of articles for a site called Guru, which is kind of like a job statistical and analytical, really clever AI engine thing. But they also have tech articles that I write for. I'm a Lenovo insider, which means that Lenovo support me sometimes with equipment, which is nice, but also just in tech as well, so tech support. So I help people that say on Twitter, hey, I don't know what Lenovo's doing, and I can sort of point them in the right direction and stuff. I've just started doing a new show for a company called a Cloud Guru, a tech show on anything that's cool in tech right now. So it's kind of a fun fun take on a technology that's kind of cool right now. So the first episode was on augmented reality, next one's on quantum computing, and I just recorded one on machine learning. And then I've just my book from Sync Fusion, like an ebook on HoloLens development, is coming out next week. All right, so I managed to fit a lot in. And I still watch a movie once in a while. It's not like I'm working 24/7, although it feels like that sometimes, but that's a choice. However, in my spare time, I also am a member of the Jeep Owners Club in Melbourne, the BMW Car Club in Victoria, the Benalla Auto Club. I run a B&B, a bed and breakfast in the Victorian High Country. Oh, and we have a classic car business as well, right? So if you had the thought of, oh no, I've already got a full-time job, I can't do any more because of family, and I've got a dog and the stuff and the kids and the soccer and the thing, if you really want it, you're going to find a way, because the rest of it is excuses. Okay, and that might sound harsh, but that's it. We are really, really good at making excuses. Humans are great at making excuses a lot, because if we don't really, it's just like if you say, I'll try and do that. Has anyone ever said that? Oh, can you do this for me? Yeah, I'll try. Immediately you've already given yourself an out. Said, no, I tried. Right? You already made an excuse before you even started. Instead of just saying, no, we'll do that, or I won't do that. And then, of course, I also fit this dude in. I have no idea what he's doing there. But, that's my clone. And because I've chosen the ways that I work and the ways that I interact with people and the companies that I work with, I get to live here, which is really cool. So I've chosen not to live in the city, which is interesting. Have you ever heard the concept of Australian internet? No? Right, it's kind of non-existent. We're just getting what's called the National Broadband Network. Sounds very exciting, doesn't it? And when that's done in 3 years, we'll have the same internet speed as South Korea had in 2012 or something. Like, it's just ridiculous. So I'm on a satellite connection, which means that I have to just make things work. Okay, but I want to start at the beginning. And when I say the beginning in this case, it's about 8 years ago, where I was in a job, a typical, what I call JOB, a job. You go there at 9 o'clock, you get off at 5 o'clock, you do the same thing again the next day, right? I had a really nice house. I thought it was in, next to a national park, it was top of a hill, it was decent block size and all that. I had, great job, senior software consultant, something like that, working with some really great clients. I even had the car I really wanted, which is a Holden Calais V8V. Means nothing to you guys whatsoever, right? Have you heard of the Pontiac G8, I think it was called? Yeah. Hey? Same thing, yeah. It's an Australian car, right? But you got it here as well, but no one bought it. And I was kind of like this, right? I was kind of faking this smile the whole time. Everything is hooray. I'm following all the ticks. I'm checking all the boxes that you're taught from society. You got to get the house. You got to get the wife. You got to get the car. You got to get the house, the right job. Right? Have you ever felt like that? Yeah, I've checked another box. Ooh, I got the new car. Yeah, I've checked that box. But it's not necessarily your decision. It's you're trying to fulfill what society tells you that you should do, not necessarily what you actually want to do. And for my part, it was put in place by my parents. Not that there's anything wrong with where my parents brought me up, but it was just the way that they lived. So, inadvertently that became the way that I lived. And I came kind of to realization that this was what was happening. That wasn't the view from my office. I was in like a shared landscape, but that was the view out the window. Centre of Melbourne, good location. But there was this flame, I don't know if you have this, but there's this flame inside people, in my opinion. And it can sometimes be really bright and you're going hell for leather, or it can just be almost extinct. And in me, it was dying. I was doing the same thing over and over again. I wasn't actually moving anywhere. I was just, giving myself to a job, so I could pay for a house and a car that society said that I should have. And then every time we get to a point, several points usually in life, there's a catalyst. It's an event. It can be several times in your life where something fundamental or detrimental happened. It doesn't have to be negative, but it usually is. And for me, it was I found out my wife was cheating on me. I didn't know what to do. What the hell do you do? And for me, this sounds cliche, but it literally changed everything. I stopped everything I was doing because I didn't know where I was going. Everything society has taught me was now no longer true. And to be honest, it was freaking scary, right? That's probably the lowest point of my life that I am aware of. Sorry about that. I'll get rid of him. And then you go, well, what the hell am I good at? What am I going to do? It's another scary thought, and you go, I don't know. I don't know what I'm good at. Because everything I thought I was meant to do is actually something that someone else was telling me that I had to do. So where do I go to from here? Does this make sense? You have this catalyst, and I'm sure many of you have had it. Either you're aware of it or you're not, where something fundamental in your life happens. It doesn't have to be, an affair as such that breaks a marriage, but it can be anything else. But it's something that changes your life so that you have to make decisions in order to fix it, to figure out what the hell you're going to do. So for me, this was a big part of it. Are there any people here that set goals? I that's awesome. That's really good. Does anyone want to share one? All right. You want to live more remotely? Is that what you're saying? Okay, you want to work remotely. All right. And that's almost a goal. I'm sure you have much more detail around it that you're not sharing, and that's cool. And I'll just give you a bit of an introduction to what I think goals are. And this is, you can Google this and it'll be everywhere. But there's something called SMART goals. They're specific. So, the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. They're measurable, which means that you can actually figure out if you're staying on track. You know exactly how far along the path to this goal you are. It's attainable, which means that you can actually attain larger goals, but you need a plan, obviously. And as the size of the goal grows, so do you. It has to be relevant to what you're doing. It doesn't matter, there's no point in me saying, I want to be an astronaut, because I'm never going to be an astronaut, right? I'm too old. I don't have any of the qualifications for it. I'm actually not interested in it. It has to be relevant to who you are. It has to be time-bound. To me, this is the most important thing. If you don't have a date on when this goal is going to happen, it's not a goal. It's just a wish. You need to know how far along the journey you are and when it's going to complete. Okay, does anyone now set goals? Okay, that's still a few. That's good. That's really good, yeah. Because that, to me, is fundamental in making sure that your goals are not wishes. And then, of course, write them down. And I mean, with your handwriting, as bad as it might be, because we're all nerds, but write them down and put them on the wall where you can see them. And the reason I'm putting, this for me was what I started doing. Now, my current partner that I met about a year or year and a half after my divorce pushed me massively towards this. So I can't take all the credit. But goal setting for me is what has changed everything I do, the whole, why am I doing this thing now? Oh, it's because I want to achieve this goal. Right? For example, one of my goals is that I want to buy a Ferrari Mondial, preferably 1984, fuel injected. But that's because I love cars. To me, that's a material goal that I can work towards, but it doesn't have to be material. You can have all sorts of goals. And then what that has enabled me to do is that a couple of years ago, we took the boys to the Berlin Wall, or what was left of it. And then I don't know who said this quote, but I love it. Do today what others won't, so tomorrow you can do what others can't. And it's so true, because overnight success takes years. You got to sow the seeds, and the goal setting is part of that. So if you sit here saying, okay, I'm a senior developer for whatever company, and in 3 years I want to be the software practice lead. Well, you got to figure out how the hell you do it in 3 years, right? You can't just sort of say, oh yeah, I'll do that one day, because then you'll never will. Or if you say, oh, I'll try and do that, no, you won't. You set a goal, and then you work your ass off to get to that goal. And then once you've done your goal settings, it's time to doing, right? You've got to start building. You've got to actually start doing something. And because you've got the goals, you'll be steered in the right direction. Especially if you put your goals on paper and you put them in a place where you keep looking at them. Put them on your fridge. Put them next to your office desk. Wherever it is that you constantly will read them and look at them. Don't put them in a drawer. Make them front and center of everything you do. And there will be times, I'm not going to lie to you, where you go, I don't know how to get to that goal. I'm just going to go in this dark tunnel, and I'm just going to hopefully come out the other end and see what happens. And you will. I promise you, if you keep working towards it, you will find a way. Even though you don't know the exact path right now, you will find a way that you can achieve exactly what it is you want. Because usually the only one stopping you is yourself or your family. There's my other half, Fiona, she's a life coach, and she has this concept of the birds. Have you ever heard of the birds? No? The birds, they come, they fly in, and then they peck at you, and you go, are you sure that's a good idea? Why are you doing that? Why oh, you can do this instead. Oh, that's a waste of time. And they keep pecking at you. And eventually you go, yeah, that's probably not very good. It's probably a bit crap. And you drop it. And that's where you need the goals again, right? Because there will always be some naysayers that say, well, I tried that. That didn't work. And that's just, well, for me, that would be one more reason to then actually do it, right? But different things motivates different people. Any questions on the goals at all? Because it's a big topic and I went across it pretty much.
How often do you revisit them?
That's a really good question. How often do I revisit goals? I would say as frequently as I need to. Because I constantly look at them, I kind of know if they're on track or not. That's not saying that you should just keep pushing them out, which is tempting sometimes. If there are goals that are really uncomfortable, or there's a step in a goal that's really uncomfortable, you tend to go, I'll do that tomorrow. Just kind of like if you need to ring the dentist and make an appointment. Yeah? Because some people go, I don't want to do that. I'll just do that tomorrow. So if you continually do that, there's a different problem. But if you genuinely are using, you need more time to do something, I'll definitely just revisit it. But you've got to make sure it's a conscious decision to do the whole thing. And revisit the whole thing if you need to change the timeline or the details or whatever it might be. But because there will be a lot of this, means that you will have to revisit goals. Yes?
Have you ever tried to make too many goals consecutively or simultaneously to try to achieve at the same time, thinking that...
I think what you're asking is, have I ever overburdened myself with number of goals? Yeah, totally. Definitely. Because once you start doing it right, you go, I worked the first time. I'm just going to do 10 more and expect the same thing to happen. But there's still only one of you. You still only have the same amount of time. But there's nothing wrong with doing 10 goals. And then you'll figure out really quickly which ones you want to do more than the others, right? Which generally is either, in my experience, it means that you're just pursuing something you're really passionate about. And some of the goals might be because, my boss said I had to do this certification. That might be another goal. But yeah, you can definitely overburden yourself. But it usually comes out in the wash what actually matters. Cool, we open it up, that's good. Yes?
Well, is there a difference between the way you measure habits versus goals? And if you do, what are the different metrics you're actually tracking?
Oh, that's interesting. How do I measure habits versus goals? They're very different things to me. I could have a goal of making a habit, but generally it takes about 3 months to create a habit. So you go from never doing it to making it kind of routine, takes about a month. And then you get to a point where it becomes, what's the word? I forgot the word. Second nature, yeah, and then it becomes a habit, right? I don't think that was what I was looking for, but it works, thank you. And once you get to being a habit, then you've achieved that goal. But the habit continues, right? So the habit might be that you always have to get your code peer reviewed, whatever it might be. And initially, you might forget half the time, but you keep working on it. You keep looking at the thing that says, don't forget to peer review your code. And then eventually, you get into a point where you just, you remember it every time. And then you get to a point where you don't really think about it. It's a bit like driving a car. When you learn to drive a car, everything is really scary, and there's a million different inputs. Then you get to a point where you just got to, which bits to look for. And then you get to a point where you forgot how many traffic lights you went through and whether they were green. You ever done that? Yeah, exactly. And then it becomes a habit. And you second nature, you're trusting your second nature to take care of things for you. All right. So I want to just share a few tricks that I've used, not tricks, but things that I do consistently to help both my career, but also to improve, the things that I want to do. The first one is networking. Who here hates going up to a stranger saying, "Hi, I'm Lars"? Well, you don't have to say Lars, but Yeah, exactly, right? It's not a thing we're that great at. I mean, I like it. That's why I run a bed and breakfast. I love talking to people, figure out who they are. But networking is so damn important. It's never important what you know, it's important who you know. And it's so true. Because if you have the right network, then you know who to talk to. For example, I can say this as a conference speaker. Yes, you submit a talk for a conference, but then you also follow up with the person organizing the conference and say, hey, I'd really like to go. Especially if you already met them and have a rapport with them. And then your chances of getting accepted, or they're saying, yeah, but the talks you have don't really fit. Maybe you can do another one or have a conversation, and then suddenly that your chances are much higher. It's the same with everything, in my opinion. Like, networking is absolutely everything. And I'm guessing there's meetups in Columbus, or user groups or that sort of thing. Yep, that's a great way. If you haven't never been to a user group, that's a perfect way to start networking. And then when you go, try and find one where you know nobody, right? And then here's a goal for you, if you haven't done it already. Go and talk to someone, random person. It's really easy. Do you know what people's favorite thing to talk about is? Themselves, exactly. It is so easy. Just go, hi, I'm Lars. So what do you do? That's it. And it becomes obvious if they don't want to talk to you. I'll just move on to the next one, right? But you invariably start creating some connections that are going to be so valuable. And then when you do it, say over and over and over again, you get to a point where everything kind of just feels like that, right? Suddenly you have no idea why this person contacted you, say, hey, can you do this thing? And what about, hey, this thing comes over here. And you talk to the guy that I used to work with my former accountant's dog's owner's child or whatever. And you suddenly just have this network. The pitfall or the trap with this is that you go, oh, that's cool. They all come to me. I'll say, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. I used to do that. I'm a yes person by nature. I'll say, of course I'll help you out. But if you just keep saying yes and yes and yes, you just go mad because everyone's time is more important than yours. Right? This is when you constantly say yes. You just go, okay, sure. And you end up doing nothing of it, none of it. So yeah, you got to counter the brain freeze. So learn to say no. We could do a whole talk on learning to say no. All right, so that's networking. Does that make sense? Anyone here doesn't network, as in I don't want to talk to people? Of course you wouldn't put up your hand now, because then I'll make you talk. Another really, really important thing is leverage. And do you know what leverage means? Do you get the idea of leverage, of the concept of the word? It means that there's a balance in things, right? Hence, is that called a seesaw in the US? Yeah, that's what I thought. Leverage to me is, hey, for example, I have done Pluralsight courses with Scott Allen. Are you familiar with Scott Allen and his work on ASP.NET and stuff? He's really, really, really popular on Pluralsight. His courses get a lot of views. I thought, all right, if I do a course with Scott, a play-by-play, then I can probably kind of trade off his name a bit and his popularity, and maybe I can push myself. But then I also know, well, Scott's already doing a million other things, so how do I make sure that I leverage it for him? How do I make it worth his time? So I said, hey, Scott, you know what? Just give me a topic, and I'll sort it all out. I'll make sure we have a location and a crew, and Pluralsight's aware, and there's contracts and everything. So I gave my time in exchange for his help and his brand. It was leverage. Win-win. It's another way I look at it. Excuse me. That makes sense? Because one or two things can happen. If you don't do win-win or don't aim to have a win-win situation every time, either you keep saying yes and you have to do everything for everybody else and eventually you run out of time and you never do your own things. Or if you keep taking, then eventually no one's going to want to work with you because they never ever get anything in return. So it's really important that every transaction you have, whether it's with a colleague or if it's for a client or whatever it might be, that it's a win-win. The first thing, because I'm a freelancer, I depend on getting new clients a lot of the time. So my first interaction will be, oh yeah, that's cool, but did you know that you could also do this? And immediately I give them a response to whatever they were asking without charging them. I'll say, hey, yeah, absolutely, I know what you're doing, and here's some value straight up front. I'm using that as leverage to get my foot in the door and talk more. Whereas a lot of companies that I work for would be, yeah, we can absolutely give you an assessment of that piece of code. That will be $4,000, right? And immediately people go, I'm not paying for that. I don't know you're good at it. So you got to have these win-win situations. Something I'm still not very good at, I've been working on this for a long time, is focus. Because you saw all the different things I did, and yes, I do manage to do all of them, but I'm as distracted as everybody else by Twitter, new emails, Slack messages, Skype messages, Facebook pop-ups of someone's cute kitten, whatever it might be. I have a real hard time staying focused for a long time on anything. Does anyone have this problem? Yeah? It's pretty common, I think. So one of the things that I've found that works really well is music for me, listening to music. Especially something like Carl Franklin's Music to Code By. Have you heard of this? If you know the podcast .NET Rocks, Carl Franklin that's on that, also he's a musician, he also does something called Music to Code By. And they're 20-minute pieces of instrumental music that's meant to get you in the groove kind of thing. So there's all this science behind it. But you can go and download the first 3 for free, but it's really cheap. It's like $40 for 17 songs or something. And it just really helps me. So I know while I'm listening to this song, I need to be doing this one task for 20 minutes. It's also called the Pomodoro technique, is part of it. And that's one thing that works for me. It might not work for you, but you've got to figure out what works for you. But it's so important to stay focused on one thing. Even though there might be a million things that's highest priority and need to be done right now, humans can't multitask. I don't care what you say. Humans cannot multitask. And context switching is so expensive. Right? Every time we switch context, we have to revamp our brain. Do you know there's a cartoon that's done the round on the interwebs with someone going through, they're visualizing code in their head, and they're building up this object tree. And then there's like 4 panels of it, and then this other character comes in and they go, excuse me, could I just, and the whole thing goes poof, and he starts all over again. That's what happens every time with context switching. Ugh. All right. Now, you can't be an expert in everything, so it's really important that you surround yourself with experts. Who here is really, really good at income tax? That's one person. All right, we'll talk more later. No, my point is that you probably aren't, and you probably don't want to be, because it's boring, isn't it? Well, most people in here think it's boring. So you get an accountant. It's the same with, if you want to get in really, really good shape, it's probably a good idea to get a personal trainer. Or if you really want to learn a coding topic in, say you want to learn Python, you probably want to go to Pluralsight or some other, training resource. You need to have experts around you to help you with the things that you're not good at. Outsource. And it's, does that make sense? Anyone here has experts in their lives? It should be all of you, really. Because we can't do everything ourselves. And if you try and do everything yourselves, you get no time to do the things that are important, which are your goals. And then on the other hand, if you are the smartest guy in the room, or lady, you're probably in the wrong room. Because you're not going to learn anything. Make sure you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in whatever areas. Passed away recently, in case you didn't know. That is really important. Make sure you have people that are smarter than you in your life. Somewhere. It might be a mentor at work. It might be someone you follow on Twitter and can communicate with. Whatever way works for you. Persistence. This is where, again, I was talking about the birds before. Persistence to do the things you want to do. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So there will be times where you go, holy shit, I have no idea what to do next. But you keep pushing and you go, all right, it's probably this and I'll try that. And that didn't work. And then you don't give up. You persist in going, well, it must be some other way then. And the more time, I think it was Edison that said success is failing over and over again. This is true. No one gets it right the first time all the time. It's just not possible. You've got to persist to getting what you want. Questions, anyone? No? Come on. Surely. All right, up there, sir. Context switching, what, sorry? Oh, is that another system? Who is this? Elon Musk. Yeah, but he's not human. No, I don't know. Of course, there are people that work in different ways, but in general, context switching is really, really bad idea. There are some software solutions where you can be told how much time you spent on any particular application, and on average, how long you spend each time. Try and do that. It's really interesting. I had Outlook was opening every 6 minutes, and I'd spend 14 seconds on it or something, just because I was checking emails all the time. There's no reason to do that. Nothing is that important. But it's a good question, though. But yeah, Elon's a bit there, I think. In some areas. He's terrible to be married. Yes?
So, also, along with using music and some other techniques to help focus, what's your take on, I guess, your environment, like your atmosphere? What other things?
Oh, right. So what's my, of the perfect, I guess, work environment?
Yeah, like the environment that you feel the most comfortable.
I feel most comfortable in. Well, I work from home, so I don't have to wear pants. There's that. No, it is important that a lot of, there's always these theories about a cluttered desk means a cluttered mind kind of thing. I'm not so sure about that. Depends on how you work. I used to work with a guy that had paper everywhere, but he knew exactly where everything was. So just if you moved anything, he'd get mad at you. But yeah, you got to set up an environment that works for you. So the first thing I did when I moved to this house was to get 3 screens for my office, because I knew that 3 screens was the way that I could best work in what I do. But it could also be that you need a beanbag, or you need to have access to fresh air out of the door, or whatever it is that makes you comfortable when you're working. And a lot of workplaces, I think, are coming around to this concept. I don't know, does anyone work in a place that have outdoor meeting rooms? Oh, really? Sorry? I thought it was common. No?
The weather is terrible here.
See, I'm making excuses already. No, it's, well, I live in Melbourne. The weather's not exactly awesome all the time either. Because something like having an outdoor meeting or walking meeting, where you talk about things while you walk, has proven over and over and over and over again that that is the best way to get inspiration, to solve problems in the most optimal fashion, and all these things. So companies, especially in Melbourne, are starting to have, and it'll just say meeting room, the park. It's and it means that the whole meeting, which I don't like meetings, but let's go with the meeting, goes to the park to resolve whatever it is they need to do. So yeah, the work environment is really important. It's got to be conducive to what you're trying to do. There was someone else before that put up their hand, but I forgot where it was. And no, okay. And then there's, oh yes, sorry.
Do you have any advice helping people to push themselves to take risks, even if it means they might fail?
Advice on pushing people to take risks even though they may fail. Well, that's implicated in taking risks, is that you may fail. I don't know. I think the best way of putting it is that if you have a goal that you want to achieve, there will be some risk in it. And you got to be prepared to persist in doing it again. It's just, have you ever written, let's say you've written a day's worth of code and you check it in and the check-in doesn't work and you lose it all? No? No one's ever used source control. Or source safe. Remember source safe? And you go, that really stinks, but what are you going to do? You're just going to do it again. And chances are it'll probably be better the second time around. So there are, risk is an inherent part of life. If you don't want to risk anything, you're not really living, because you can't do anything. You're not even going to go shopping, right? Yes, down the front. How to persist through failure. That is a tough one, I must admit, because there's nothing worse than failing initially, right? You sort of go, oh man, I thought I had it, or whatever, and depending on what the outcome is as well. If it's a major project fail, yeah, it's probably going to really hurt. You probably need someone else to guide you through it. Sometimes you just can't do these things yourself. Something like a personal mentor is a really good thing. If you don't have a mentor, find one. It usually could be someone, a parent's friend is a good idea. Someone that knows you somewhat privately, or it could be a boss, a former boss. Mentoring is key sometimes, especially in failure, because they would see it much more objectively than you would, because you're right in the middle of it. That's one way I would certainly deal with it. But it depends on the level as well. Sometimes you can kind of brush it off. Like I auditioned. No, I didn't audition. I interviewed with a really large company in January, and I was like, it was 6 one-hour interviews in a day. There was a phone interview. I had to go to Sydney to do it, so it was overnight. And I thought it went brilliantly, really well. And then you get a phone call going, someone you've never talked to before, and they go, sorry, no. That was it. It was a 30-second phone call. And you go, what, huh, really? And that took me about a day. I went, all right, next. Because I kind of knew I'm now confident enough in my own abilities. I went, okay, it's probably just because that didn't fit me. It's not me that was necessarily the wrong one. But yeah, it depends on what it is. Like a failed marriage, I couldn't do that one on my own. Like it depends on the gravity. Yes.
I have one from Slack.
Oh, from Slack, certainly.
Any resources or books you recommend for goal setting and completion?
Any resources or books on goal setting? Google it. There are so many resources. Go with the shortest one first. Don't try and do all of it, because like I said, goal setting can be a massive topic. There's lots and lots of self-help books. I don't really read many of those books. I don't subscribe too much to self-help books. Maybe that's something that works for others. It just hasn't really worked for me. I rely more on personal interaction with people. I don't know. Sorry, other room, if that works or not. All right. Yes, over there. Oh, that's a good question. What would I say to people that are facing burnout? So we all familiar with the concept of burnout? Yep. Okay. Cool. Generally, that is fixable with goal setting, in my opinion, because burnout is often when you try and do too many things at the same time within a deadline kind of thing. So it could be that you're really passionate about your job and you work 80 hours a week and you've done that for 4 years and you don't actually progress much. You just keep doing it because, well, there's lots of people that depend on it, you're good at it, and you might be progressing well as well. But you burn out eventually because you just can't keep up the pace and you feel the pace keeps building. If you know exactly what you're headed for, if you know what your goals are and what you want to achieve, it's a lot easier to make an informed decision about a particular task, say I'm not doing that or I am doing that. And that can help with burnout. But it's not, burnout can come in many, many flavors. Often it kind of sneaks up on you and you think you're right and suddenly it can immediately lead to depression, and then it becomes much more than what I'm skilled at talking about. If you get to a depression stage, you definitely need to seek professional help because that's a real illness, real serious illness. So does that answer your question sort of more or less? Yeah? All right. The one thing, another one, yes.
So there's tons of self-help, goal setting, all that kind of content out there. Given your experience, how do you wade through it all? What actually works?
How do you wade through all the goal setting material that you can read about? Yeah, if you Google it, yeah. That's what I said. You just pick one that's short, and then the most important thing is you do the work. You can read till the cows come home about goal setting, but if you read one article and go, all right, I'm doing that, then when you've gone through the steps of that, it may work, it may not. If it doesn't work, you find another article and adjust. But I don't think there is a true resource for everybody. There's not a silver bullet on how to set goals. I like SMART goals because it works for me. It's very segmented and say, I need to set all these things and now I have a goal. But it might not work for someone else. But I've always go with find a short article. I'm not a fan of huge, massive, multiple series blog articles that try to explain something that you have never read about. Yes?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how
Scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to write down your goals? Oh, probably 11. No, seriously. If you don't write them down, they're just going to go push. If you keep them in an Excel spreadsheet, you're never going to open that Excel spreadsheet again. I would write them down. Oh, I do. Write them down. Yeah. And they become real. Once you've written them, they're real. You got another Slack one?
I have another Slack.
All right.
How much do you sleep a day, and do you burn the midnight oil? You burn the midnight, so.
That's a good question. Yeah, I have had this question before. How much do I sleep? Not a lot. Is probably the true answer. I have never slept very much, and that's probably just the way I am. I sleep about 6 hours a night, usually from about 11 to 5:30-ish. And when I was a kid, I used to get up and make my parents breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was always up at that time. But if you need to sleep, I bet though, if you sleep 9 hours, say you sleep from 10 to 7, as an example, you could, by making it a habit, get by just as well on 8 hours. I am confident that that is true for 99.9% of people. And that means that suddenly you have a whole day's worth of work every week. Imagine what you could do with that. 7 hours more a week. And so I do professional mentoring as well for a bunch of different people at various levels of walks of life. And there's especially two guys that were always, my kids always get up at 6. And then I'm off to work at 8, and then I get home at 6, and then I'm tired. I went, all right, so what happens if you get up at 5? And they're like, I'm not getting up at 5, are you mad? Was kind of the reaction. And then I went, no, try it. And then they started getting up at 5. One guy it kind of worked for, the other guy just worked brilliantly. Because there was no reason mentally whether he got up at 5 or 6. He was just as tired, essentially. So he got up at 5, and then he started doing his own thing. He wanted to, I can't remember now, I think he wanted to learn Python. So he started going through the motions of doing Python at 5 o'clock in the morning. So there are things like that you can change your sleep pattern. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you have to sleep 5 or 6 hours a night. It really is an individual choice and need. Sometimes it's a really good idea to have a nap in the middle of the day. I know, bit of grandpa there, but no, seriously. Half an hour nap in the middle of the day can extend your energy space a lot. Physical exercise is a good thing. I know as nerds, I'm really not very keen on physical exercise. I live where I live, so I have to walk a lot, which helps, but yeah, it's another thing that gives you a lot of energy is just exercising. I hope that answered the question for a person in the other room. All right, so let's talk about something that always comes up in these things, and that is income. Because a lot of these things people do to get more money. Am I right? If you said no, get out, because I'm sure that is always the case, right? Of course we want to have more money. It gives more freedom, you can do more things, you can buy a better holiday for your kids, whatever it might be that drives you. And this is certainly something I spend a fair amount of time on. I'm not very good at it all the time. But there are two types of income. Does anyone want to venture a guess what that is? Yes? Active and passive income, exactly. So active income is you going to work from 9 to 5 and getting paid from 9 to 5. You're trading some hours for some money. That's an active income. You do something to get paid. And I would say pretty much all of us is probably in that category to some extent. Is that right? Yes, okay. The other side of it, which is much more interesting, is passive income. And that's when you do something once usually, and then you get paid over and over and over again, which is how a lot of companies work, right? They create a product, and then they sell it over and over and over again. Anyone think Microsoft, Windows, right? You keep selling the same thing over and over again. For me, it's Pluralsight courses. That's one of the things that is my passive income. So I spend a couple of months on a course. Last night I delivered the last modules of my Managing Scope Creep course, which is a new one for me. So I've spent 2 months doing that-ish, and then every quarter I get paid for whoever watches it. But I don't have to do anything more with the course. So obviously the more you build up, and hopefully people keep watching them. In my case, they don't always. No one watches my Windows Phone testing and error management anymore. I don't know why. um, so, but passive income is really, really important. It comes in lots of flavors. It used to be tech books was a good idea. Not so much anymore. It could be that you invest in houses and you have rental properties. Whatever it is that can create a passive income for you. So you work really, really hard to do it once, and then you get paid over and over and over again. Does anyone do that? Does anyone have a passive income? No? Really? Working on it? Yeah, that's good. Yep. Yeah, that's a start. Okay, I'm surprised actually, because if you want to build more time for yourself and build more opportunities and do more things, passive income is paramount. Because you do things here, and then you have all this time afterwards where you can do the next thing while you get paid for the first thing. It's really important. And it's not easy, though, to get into, because if you're in a job now and you probably work, how many hours do you work a week in Columbus? 40? Officially 40? Yeah. Like a lot of times you go home, you go, I'm not doing anything else, right? Or if you have kids, then you deal with kids for 4 hours. Or you might want your favorite TV show is on. Or hang on, who watches TV here? Oh, come on, be honest. Yeah, just stop. Just don't watch TV, okay? I get in trouble sometimes for saying this, but just don't. Just stop watching TV. It's a giant waste of time. If you need to relax and unwind your brain, watch a movie. It ends. There's an ending on it. TV shows just goes, yeah, but did you know there's a whole other season you could watch right now? Oh, yes. So, yeah, just that is one of the biggest time killers is watching TV, in my opinion. Just stop. But yeah, if you just take 1 hour a day or 1 hour every 2 days to invest into yourself, invest into creating some sort of passive income, it might be that you want to do online training. It might be that you want to, who knows, create some other excitement on the internet that becomes the next big lolcat. Who knows? But just invest in something, because it might take you 3 or 4 or 5 years to finish it and do it, but it'll be worth it. I promise you. It's the whole thing of do today what others won't, so tomorrow you can do what others can't, right? Yeah, I'm really surprised actually that no one has a passive income. That's amazing. Any questions on that? Because there always is. Oh, okay. Yeah.
How do you recover from losing that passive income due to some foreseen event like, Windows Phone?
So how do you recover from losing a passive income? Well, that's why you need multiple. Yeah. It's like I always use Richard Branson as an example, if you're familiar with him. Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin, the brand Virgin. He has, 100 companies? And he's obviously not managing all of them himself, right? But he still gets a cut for every single one of them. It's his passive income, is that he can do his philanthropic things and he can go on a jetpack or whatever it is he's doing to create publicity because he's got all of these passive incomes. Yeah. Yes?
How would you go about searching for a passive income stream, like if you've not explored this before?
How would you find, I think I'll rephrase and say, how would you find the right passive income stream for you? Mm-hmm. Yep. So what do you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking? Software developer. Yeah. Okay. Is there a particular, say, category of software development that you're particularly passionate about?
Backend services, Java, also some.
Backend services, Java, yeah.
Web services.
Okay. Have you got a blog? No. Do you enjoy writing? Occasionally, okay. There is actually money in blogging, believe it or not. If you do it consistently, which I don't, it's not one of my things. But I have a friend that'll earn $1,000 a week on ads. But it's taking him 7 years to get to that point. But if you consistently write, say in this case, about web services or Java, and you provide value every single time, over the course of time, you will get an audience that will start following you, and then you can start selling your ads on it or selling membership to more content or whatever it might be. That could be one way. I've certainly toyed with the idea of creating some sort of membership service. So that I would say you get a video a day or a video every second day if you pay $5 a month, kind of thing, something like that. That's one way you could do it. I mean, we're all kind of like web here, I would imagine. Sorry, no, I'm not going to assume, but web is a big part of software development. And there certainly is a lot of ways on the web that you can do this, but it requires a hell of a lot of effort. None of this is easy. So, any other questions? We've got about 3 minutes left, something? 3 minutes? Yes, sorry. Yep. I was hoping someone would pick up on this. I said don't ever be the smartest guy in the room, but every group or every room is going to have a smartest guy, right? This is true. And some people are very happy being the smartest guy. I'm just saying if you want to progress and be better at what you do, don't be that guy. Okay, but there are some people that is it. They've got to where they want to be and they're happy with that. They don't want to go any further, and that's cool. But certainly, like, I've used Stephen Hawking as an example. Well, he would be in the room with all the other astrophysicists that are much smarter than him in some areas, right? He wasn't going to sit around with uni students necessarily all the time because he'd never progress. Yes?
So you just say, don't be the smartest person for the topic of which you want to grow.
That's, yeah, probably good. Don't be the smartest person in the room for a topic in which you want to be, well, grow or be better at. Yeah, that's probably a better way of putting it. Yeah. All right, yes?
Is there any specific way you break your day down, given that you do so many different things? Do you have a concept of theme mornings or theme days? This day I'm going to work on my site work.
I know what you're asking. Is there a way that I break up my day? Come talk to me afterwards. Short answer is no, but the long answer is a lot longer. We'll be running out of time. I just want to go through and say, you got to take action, right? It's enough that I'm just standing here talking almost at you, but you've been pretty good. There's been communication, but it's got to be on you. You got to do the work. I've given you a bunch of tools and a bunch of ideas that work for me, but you got to figure out what works for you, and you got to actually use it, right? It's not enough to come to a session and go, oh, that was good, and then go home and play Xbox again, right? You can't do that. So it's up to you. And I promise you, if you do, I will make a certificate for you. All right, that's all we had time for this time. Thanks a lot, guys.